Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Andre Savoie, to the show today. Andre is a marketing strategy wizard and wannabe fishing captain. After over 17 years of running a marketing agency, he came to the conclusion that the model needs to evolve. Marketing is getting more complex, and business owners feel more overwhelmed than ever before. Yet one thing remains unchanged. Nothing is more important than strategy. Getting this right leads to clarity, purpose, and growth. Creating strategies is his superpower, his zone of genius, his happy place. That's why he walked away from his agency to offer clients a new hybrid model where you can get the strategic help you crave on a one-on-one basis while learning and becoming empowered in an affordable group setting. I'm excited to have you here, Andre. Welcome.
Thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate it. Looking forward to chatting.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit
about
about
the lawyers in my life.
Yes, exactly. Let's chat about the lawyers in your life and how you work with your clients to help them learn better about marketing.
Sure. So, I like to say the lawyers in my life because almost 20 years ago when I started my marketing agency, my father got diagnosed with mesothelioma. And you work with lawyers, so I know you probably know what that is. A lot of people maybe don't. Well, mesothelioma is a very rare form of asbestos-related cancer. And the lawyers at that point, I was very raw in the discovery of my father's illness. And then for those of you who don't know much about mesothelioma, it's basically a death sentence and it happens very quickly. So you get diagnosed and then oftentimes the patient's dead within 6 months. So it's a very traumatic time for us to find out we're going to lose our dad. This is work-related injury. It could have been prevented. Finding a lawyer that specialized in this area. So I went through all that as a plaintiff and our family and developed a relationship with the attorney that handled our case. And he was my first client 20 years ago. And so I kind of had that really personal experience of being on the other side of meeting an attorney and seeing what the process was. What are you looking for? What do you need? And those raw, uneducated moments have really guided me when I work with lawyers, because I feel like a lot of lawyers, and lawyers are not unusual just in that they have a lot of knowledge about what they do, so they're very close to it, right? So being able to step away from it and have that beginner's mind of this is what plaintiffs are going through when they're in the process of looking for an attorney, that served me very well in just communicating with lawyers about marketing over the years, because they need that perspective of talking to somebody that's not a lawyer. They're not marketing to lawyers. They're marketing to people who are in a very tough spot, when they're going to look for an attorney.
Right. And you have that's such a unique perspective to have been that person that needed an attorney. And so you've seen it from the prospect's point of view, because we're trying to get them more of those people that need their services.
Yep. And that's no matter what the type of law it is. I think attorneys maybe don't remember that person is going through this for the first time, or they're in a very tumultuous state, and they don't understand half of what's going on. So I think that's a good thing to remember, that's the mindset of the people we're working with. And maybe in certain things like maybe business to business law, government contracts, maybe it's a little different, but that's really pretty specialized. I think more of attorneys as well, people who don't have a long history with attorneys. They don't have attorneys on retainer all the time. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's true in many industries is you're performing the service and you lose perspective of you do it every day. And this is only one time this person's ever done it, so it does make a difference to look at it in that direction. So looking at what you're doing now, not in the agency aspect, what do you do for your clients and how do you help them get those strategies or work the strategies out for their business?
Yeah. So the idea for what I'm doing now actually came from an attorney client. So about 5 years ago, we had an attorney client that told us he didn't think he was happy with what was going on, and he didn't understand. And he put in his notice, and he told us that he wanted to look around and look for another marketing agency and just see. But he goes, we had such a good relationship with him. He said, could I pay you to help me go through the process? And that the proposals and just be in the meetings and talk to them, I'm happy to pay you. And he said, and at the end, and we went through this whole process with him. And through that process, I realized that even though he was working with us, how little he knew about what was going on in the practice on the marketing side. And at the end of this 3-month process, he wound up retaining us because after looking around and getting a better understanding of what he needed and what he wasn't doing as a client, like what he needed to do better, decided to stay with us. And that experience really changed me because I began to realize that as an agency person, we want to be doing things for clients. And I think there's this expectation that when you hire an agency, they're going to do things for you, and maybe you don't need to do as much on your end. And what I did was I've actually walked away from my agency and I created a group program, which is a low-cost group program. So I'm not competing with agencies. And what people can do is I've built a course. I've built a lot of the training and things that I've done with clients over the years. And my goal at this point is to help people come in there and become more empowered so that they work with an agency, or as they maybe try to hire some help in-house for things, that they have a better idea of what they're involved with and what to manage. And so like Marilyn, in the case of an attorney working with someone like you, they could be in our program and get a better understanding of some of the core things that you're working on with them. And they will then learn, okay, now I have a better understanding of what they're working on, and I can contribute in this way. Or maybe we do things this way that will help the overall success of it. And so I think the reality of it is that no client's ever going to go to an agency and say, do all of it for us without our input, right?
Right.
The more input and the more involvement a client can have, the greater their success will be, whether they're working with an agency, doing it themselves, have an in-house employee, because we would have law firms all the time that came in and they had an in-house marketing person that the attorney didn't know how to manage, and so even though they were working, so they had an in-house marketing person and working with an agency, and the attorney couldn't give guidance and direction to the in-house person to get the end result that they wanted. So even things like that are things that I wanted to start sharing on a broader basis with people, because I felt like that's really where I am at the stage after 20 years of doing this. That's where I am at the stage, is to be a trainer and a mentor to people to help them get through that process and be more successful without having to quit with the agency they had. Because I just felt like over and over again, attorneys would get frustrated with the agency because they didn't understand the results. They didn't understand what it was going to take. They didn't understand what the agency was telling them. And so their default answer is fire the agency and go find a new one. And sometimes it works because I know there are crappy agencies out there, but for the more part, what you found is that the clients needed to elevate their knowledge and what they were doing to be more participative. And I think that's what I've learned after 20 years, is that the clients, and I think it's in this day and age too, and you could probably speak to this, but if you're an attorney and you want to differentiate yourself in this market today, you've got to be authentic. And
right,
it's very hard as an agency to come up with authentic things if the client's not involved, and so I think that's another part of it, that's even more reason for attorneys to be more involved with their marketing and learn.
I agree. When you talk about them not knowing what to be involved with, we find that expectations, and I'm sure this is part of your training, is expectations on both sides. It's incredibly important. We also have a professional account manager that is assigned to each of our clients so that there is weekly communication. We want to make sure if there's any confusion, it's handled early. It's full transparency of what we do. But one of the things I noticed early on in my agency of working with attorneys is when we started working together, they expected us to do everything, and basically untold. I mean, it's kind of like the assumption is you're going to bring me a client ready to pay. And that just isn't true when it comes to online marketing. We're going to hopefully bring you some very warm leads ready to find an attorney, but we can't hand you a case, right, without you doing some work with that. We do train our clients with the front desk and that sort of thing. So I think, what you're doing is great in getting them to understand how online marketing can make them really scale their firm that they need to understand what happens on their side as well.
Yep. And, I think if you look at like from a big picture, there's been this evolution in marketing over the years where it went from TV and phone book and billboards and bus stops and those sort of things down into, that's very small group of attorneys are still doing that now. And I'm not saying that works or doesn't work. I'm just saying the number of attorneys who are choosing to do that is very small compared to the ones that are doing it now. And to do digital, it's not, you don't just buy the ad and then you forget about it. It's not that simple. And so you have to be more involved and understand the technology and how it works, and to understand that the journey of the customer who's making that first inquiry is different and needs to be handled a certain way. So all those things come into play, and that's where people get frustrated when they don't really understand. And again, I've seen attorneys come in that had been through 2 agencies and just wasted 2 years and whatever they had spent because they weren't doing their part. And I know that it doesn't really sound like, I don't want that to sound like a blame game, but what I mean is that when they begin to understand and to take some ownership of that side of their business, they then all of a sudden see their results blossom because they're just in a better place to manage, and I think they just have the realization that this is not a hands-off process. I can't just hire somebody and forget about this and just go deal with what I want to do. And it doesn't mean that they have to become a full-time marketer, right? It doesn't mean that they have to stop what they're doing and do all that, but it does mean that their level of participation and contribution directly affects the success of the campaigns.
Exactly. And I agree, I want them to be, as you want them to be, educated and understand what we're doing. At the same time, it's like when I needed a divorce, I didn't do it myself, right? I wanted a professional to take care of it, so I hired an attorney to do it. I want my attorney clients and any of my legacy clients to understand what we're doing, but you don't need to know the nuts and bolts because you're good at what you do. We want to bring you more business to be able to do more of what you do.
Yeah.
But the expectations, the knowledge, and so that but I hate buzzwords. That's the other thing is, there's certain buzzwords that we could say PNC, they get it because that's their buzzword. But to try to talk to a client that's not a marketer and use all of these KPIs and stuff that they don't need to learn all of that. Speak to them so that they understand. Tell them about the reports. What are you showing them? And help them understand what's going on. I think that's the biggest thing is I applaud you for what you're doing. Just making sure people understand what they're buying and why it's working or why it's not.
Yeah, thank you. And Marilyn, the other thing that I think is really important with attorneys is, when we chose our attorney, as a family, we for somebody who was going to be tough, right? Well, so we kind of like we're like, okay, yeah, we're going against the big guys, right? So we need somebody who's tough. But for us, we were in such a bad place that compassion was more important and knowledge in this area of the law was important. And so, as I looked at, and this is how I wound up signing the client, because that attorney happened to be referred to us, and we saw those characteristics in him. But when I pulled up his website, I said to him, Frank, your website's like a business card. And he goes, I know, it's embarrassing. It's terrible. And I said, it doesn't convey any of what you have done for us. I said, it doesn't convey any of this. I said, it just looks like a generic site. If I had come in online, I would have no way of picking you out separate from anybody else. And so that has stuck in my head that like these attorneys, especially the good ones, are really good at those things, and so if they don't take the time to communicate that to you, Marilyn, you'll never have a chance of putting that in front of the right person who's going to make that connection with that person because they're looking for that at the time. And I think it has to come from them. They have to be,
it does.
And share what makes them different and be good at it, because they're not all the same, not by a long shot. I mean, I've been around enough of them at this point to know that they're all vastly different. And
that's true. The one thing that we have a huge issue with doing is I understand that they're being cautious about being on camera or any of that sort of thing. But one of the things that we try, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get, is an intro video. That's something simple that you do it with your phone. And you don't talk to the phone, talk to that PNC, right? Talk to that potential new client and tell them who you are, what you do, how you help with it, and call the number below, right? I mean, that sort of thing, so we can use it in ads, but we want to hear your voice because the everyday Joe feels like attorneys are unapproachable. And there's times in their life where they desperately need one.
Yep.
And they need to be able to go, Andre was the guy. I saw his video. I really liked him.
It's a
And see if
connection,
he can help me.
personal connection.
Yeah, that's that know, like, and trust, and we need that in marketing, because especially we're talking local marketing. You're probably not the only estate planning attorney or the only family law attorney in your
Probably
town.
not.
Differentiate yourself by being approachable, having a few videos out there, and just explaining who you are. We're not asking for legal advice, right? We just want to have your voice there, because you're right. Those websites that, the professional ones that are gorgeous and have all the conversion and pieces to it, unless you've got videos somewhere, there's nothing bringing people back, keeping them there long enough to get some ranking out of it, or explaining who you are.
Yep. 100% agree.
Absolutely. So when you're working with your clients, how do you help them to overcome confusion and maybe choosing if they want to keep their marketing in-house or choose an agency?
For me, I really feel like it's about understanding the strategy. And so the way I built the course modules and the way I run my training is that I just use Google Ads. So we talk about Google Ads in a way that helps them understand what makes a successful campaign. So my class is not about like getting into the weeds of the specifics of keywords and this and that. Like, we're not trying to teach somebody how to run a Google Ads campaign, but what we're trying to do is teach somebody what the elements are that make for a successful Google Ads, and then what kind of expectations to have, what questions to have. And so we talk about things in that sense of understanding the why and the how, so that people learn how to think about things. And I think that's really what I've been after with this program, is to teach people how to think better about the marketing. And that way they can get in, and when they come to the next meeting with you, they have a better thought process to understand what you're trying to do with this, so that when they look at a report or a keyword or an ad, they can go, okay, now I understand. Here's a question I have, or here's a suggestion I have based on whatever we've seen, and that's where the light bulb clicks with people, because you can take the same tactic and look at it from two different ways. And so I think if we can get the light bulbs to come on, that's how we make people show up to a meeting with you and say, I'm in a better headspace now. I understand this, and I can ask you intelligent questions, and I know what the answers should be. And then at that point, if I decide you're not being upfront, or I know more than you, then I can decide to leave at that point, or I can then appreciate what you're doing and make some contributions. And that's the experience I had as an agency owner when I went through this process with other clients, and that's what I want to provide now, for people to have that level of understanding. Because I feel like a lot of times people feel like they don't know how to talk to their marketing agency, and they don't understand the reports, and they don't understand the jargon that you have. And so it's like, we can help close that gap. We have better communication. At that point, they'll feel better about their decision to stay, or maybe they're in the wrong place and they need to go find somebody else,
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And
the first part, I think more often than not, if they're with a person that cares, an agency that cares and has some experience in their niche, they will choose to stay, because they will have a better understanding of what's happening.
Right. And I find it, if they can bring in their intake person or their office person. So instead of them having to carry, the communication, having assigned to someone that isn't doing the cases.
Yep.
Right? That you take it off your desk. You want to work on your business, not in it. And what we do is help your business grow, so you can, we never, in our ads, we never say that you're 15-minute consultations with an attorney, because most attorneys have an intake person that qualifies, then they go to the attorney.
Yep.
So much saving time. And do you cover specific things like we do meta ads and Google ads? Do you do group coaching that focuses on each individual aspect, like different office hours type things? Is that how you work?
Yep. So my course is broken down into 7 modules, starting from strategy all the way down to nurturing. And again, they're thought process courses. They're not nitty gritty courses. And then after that, our weekly office hour stuff has we have an open session, and then we have specific topics that we get into at different times. So obviously meta ads, email marketing, social media, all that stuff is covered, even website maintenance, SEO, and again, just helping people understand that stuff, because all of these things are built just based on people having asked me questions for 20 years that I'm honestly tired of answering. But, we want to put them in there in a way that they can learn from that and not make those mistakes, and become better for it. So that's really what I've geared that up for.
Fantastic. So you help them understand everything, and then from there, they would have, do they have private sessions with you so they can go over, say, this is, I think we've been doing this, we'd like to change to this strategy. What do you suggest? Or do you do any private sessions?
Well, right now, all that's through kind of the group set. I call it a group coaching call where they can show up and have those questions answered. If somebody's got something sensitive, they can message us on the side. But we really are kind of focusing everybody to that because we want people to learn as much as possible. And then in our case, we do have plenty of people that are in the group that are actively working with it, because they just want to understand better. And, I got a text yesterday from a guy who just went through our first stage and was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I'm like, because I've gotten so much out of this already, and he's got so he's not leaving his agency and going anywhere, but he's just more power now to be a good agent, be a good client, and get what he needs.
What's your plan to grow your law firm's sales and profits in 2025? My name is Marilyn Jenkins, and I want to take a quick moment to share something I'm super excited about. It's called the Law Firm Growth Guild. It's your shortcut to mastering marketing and getting more clients. It's sponsored by Law Marketing Zone. If you're a lawyer or a law firm owner who's been feeling overwhelmed, juggling clients, leading your team, and trying to scale without losing your sanity, I get it. It's a lot. That's exactly why I created this online membership community. I've been working with law firms since 2018, and I've worked with and helped hundreds of firms across the U.S. and Canada to grow and scale their firms beyond where they had ever been before. The Law Firm Growth Guild is designed to help you understand marketing strategies and grow your firm smarter and to scale your firm predictably. And here's the best part. It's only a fraction of the price of a cup of coffee daily. My team and I are adding new content weekly, and you can be intentional about your growth and development each week. All of our webinars and workshops are in the community, and a first good workshop is all about setting your vision for your strategy for 2025. We've got workbooks, spreadsheets, and everything to walk you through setting up your marketing plan for 2025. Getting crystal clear on where you're going and how to get there. Imagine walking into this new year with confidence, with a plan, and with the tools to make 2025 into your best year yet. Don't get left behind. Join the community now and jumpstart your growth for 2025 and beyond. Click the link in the show notes or visit checkout.lawmarketingzone.com to find out more and to join the community. Let's grow your firm together. I can't wait to see you on the inside of the Law Firm Growth Guild.
Yeah, now he understands what he's working with. So you talk about strategy. So how do you help your clients understand the difference between strategy and tactics?
I have a whole module on that, actually.
They are completely different. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. The strategy I always like to think of as a way of just what the overall plan is, and so a strategy is a plan, and a plan has individual parts in it, and those individual parts of the tactic. And I think it's important because what I've seen over the years, Marilyn, is that people can do the same tactics. Like in your case, you work with law clients. You could take the same a divorce attorney in one town and run it for an attorney in another town. And that tactic works great for this attorney and it doesn't work for this one. And you have to look at why. And the why is always because the other things happening in the strategy are different from this client to that client. For whatever reason. It could be their website, their Google reviews, they're doing this or not doing that. It could be any number of things, but that's why tactics kind of don't matter, because I've just seen enough of it where the same tactic works for one, it doesn't work for the other, and it's not because of the tactic, right? So Google ads, we know work. Facebook ads, we know work, but it's the question of, are they not working for you? Then that's the strategy. And the strategy can include things that you're responsible for as a client, and so that's part of the understanding, is that why doesn't this work for one person but it's for the other? And it's because maybe that other client's doing things that you aren't doing outside of the things that an agency is doing. And so let's understand what those are, and maybe you can do them, maybe you can't. Maybe that means you need to hire an in-house person, to your point, right, to help with certain things, or maybe you need an agent, whatever it is. But that's for you to understand why, like, Google ads aren't working for you. You have to look at strategy, because it's not a question of do Google ads work or Facebook ads work. There's no arguing about that. Whether or not it works for you, is dependent on your strategy and what you're doing.
Right. And keeping up. I mean, you do, as the client, you have to be able to work these leads. You have to be able to take that. We can't spoon feed the leads your services and make them pay you.
And that's part of a strategy. You know, a strategy is not about a lead gen, like somebody called and it's a magical thing. Like it's, so I'll tell you a quick story. I was in an attorney's office. And again, this is part of the why I've done this. I was in an attorney's office and the attorney was at lunch and the phone rang and I overheard this whole conversation. So the conversation with this girl answering the phone was, yeah, we do that, but the attorney's not here. Do you want me to have him call you later? And she's like, no, okay. She hung up.
Oh no.
He comes back in. First thing out of his mouth, he goes, you guys are going to, I'm calling you here because I want to do this face to face, you know, like this isn't working and we're going to have to let you guys go. And I said, really? And I said, what's the problem? And he's like, well, we're not getting any calls. And I said, well, I had a report of the calls. And I said, well, I just overheard your receptionist take a call. And he goes, two calls were in there. And she's like, what was the call? She said, well, said she got hurt somewhere as a slip and fall case. And we're a slip and fall case? And I said, you let him off the phone like that? And I said, well, have you looked into like how your phone's answered? What's happening with intake? Any of those things? He's like, no, our receptionist. She's, you know, and I'm like, so you know what? I fired the client right there. I mean, he didn't want to work on any of those things. So he just had to want to participate. And so I just learned that like I could take that same campaign and get it to another attorney who was willing, either had a better system or willing to build a better system. And he'd be a client for life and think this is great because it's helping grow his practice. And so that's the difference, I think, with why clients have to take accountability for their part, because I just have seen it with my own two eyes. I mean, if I get you a call and your receptionist botches it and you don't call them back and it's a slip and fall case, could be worth significant money. I mean, you just paid for marketing for a couple of years with one case and you just let it go through sloppy practice. So I've just seen that enough to where I'm ready to make sure that people are aware of those things and have the opportunity to do them. And again, see better results because of it.
Or worse yet, they just don't answer the phone. They're busy. They just don't get to the phone.
Yeah.
You know,
all those kind of things.
Yeah. I mean, it is, those are the types of things that if we are not communicating, like I told you before we got on here, we have a client that have been using another agency for 5 months and walked away because there was zero ROI. You know, they were losing money every month and came on with us. She had worked with a previous client a few years ago and went out on her own and was not sure if she would be able to afford the renewal. But she had her processes in place. She knew what she needed to do on her end. And in the first month, we got her 23 cases. There was almost 100 leads, 23 cases for $89,000. But she had the people. She had every lead was answered. And she went one step further that I really love, and I will, help other clients understand this. If a lead is disqualified, she asked them for referrals. Now, I don't know that I've heard of another attorney's office doing that. And I'm like, awesome. This woman is very interested in growing her business. But those are the types of things that we just can't guarantee are in an attorney's office. So I love that what you're doing is training them, teaching them these are the things you have to be able to do to work with an agency so that, they do see success. I think you've got a great program.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been, part of it is just realizing what you want to do and what you're good at and what your calling is and just following it, having the passion to follow instead of doing it. So it's been a great thing that I'm enjoying.
Especially you've seen this for almost 20 years. You've seen the marketing side of it. So I'm glad that you're crossing the street and helping the clients get better and understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. I know somebody will want to reach out to you, connect with you, maybe talk about getting into your program. Where could they find out more about you or connect with you?
Yeah. Best place would just be my website. It's my first name, last name. It's andresavoie.com. And you can Google me, it'll pull up, but you'll have right there. It's the group program right there on the homepage. It's low cost. It's under $100 a month. And you price it that way so people could afford it and not have to feel like it was using something else in the area. So it's designed to kind of get people in. I want to help a lot of people and spread some good. So I'm hoping to see people in there and have any questions, reach out. You can get there. It's the best way.
Perfect. I'll make sure that URL is in the show notes. And your program is called Elevate.
Yep. Elevate.
Okay, perfect. Andre, thank you so much for your time. This has been really enlightening. I hope people reach out to you and get involved in your program. I'm excited about what you do.
Thanks, Marilyn. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. I love talking about attorneys. So it's fun stuff.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take the next step with a digital strategist to help you grow your law firm, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to lawmarketingzone.com to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, thanks for listening to Leadership in Law Podcast, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership in Law Podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.